excitement, sadness, fear. All human emotional responses that can be massively enhanced with proper use of music. And you, the editor, have the power to act as the composer. You've probably heard it said that sound is 50% of editing, some say more. One thing is certain though, music is the fastest and most powerful way to completely transform a cut. But how do you do this without a big budget and a professional composer by your side? Most editors use stock music that has a fixed structure and length. Believe it or not, you can completely recompose these cues on your timeline, and doing so is actually a lot of fun. Have a look at this timeline from a film that we scored using only stock music. These tracks here are the dialogue and the sound effects, and all the rest of this is music. Using a handful of cues, some alternate mixes and stems, and a few tricks, we were able to edit the music to fit every moment in our footage like a glove. With a variety of beginner, intermediate, and advanced techniques, along with some basic music theory, you'll have the confidence to sit down with your cut and make the music do just about anything you want. Now, essentially, the goal of music editing is to arrange your cue so that the key parts of the music line up with the key parts of the cut. The starts, stops, and accents all in the right places. To do this, it's important to understand how music can behave at its most fundamental level. Now, in very layman's terms, music can swell, shrink, or shift. Looking at music through this lens is a helpful way of approaching it as an editor. Here are some examples of music swells. I'll play one of them so you can picture what I'm talking about. With a swell, the music grows in intensity, either temporarily or as a permanent level up in the cue, and swells will typically introduce new instruments into the mix. So the second thing that music might do is to shrink, like this. With a shrink, the music decreases in intensity, either temporarily or as a permanent relaxation in the cue. Shrinks will typically remove instruments from the mix. Of course, when you're custom editing your music, you can also create simulated music shrinks at the right moments by cutting to a sparser alternate mix and removing some of the instrumentation. In this example, we've got our original cue with a full mix of choir and percussion. Have a listen to this small section. So let's manually create a music shrink for this entire section. To do this, you'll either need access to full instrument stems, or simply an alt mix from your music library that perhaps removes the percussion, the vocals, or the strings. We're going to take a strings-only alt mix of the cue and lay it directly underneath the full mix version, being sure that all the beats line up. So in this section here, the cue has a series of notes creating a downward progression into a cymbal crash. The cymbal crash marks a new measure, and it's a great place to cut to an alt mix and shrink the music. And this section here is another natural turning point of the music. That's where we'll have the music swell back to its original intensity. So let's remove everything in the full mix version of the cue that occurs between these two beats. And in our alt mix, we'll just remove everything before this section and after this section. So let's check our transitions. Well, this one's a little bit weird sounding. It's often tough to shrink a cue suddenly without some sort of reverb out or at least a crossfade. Since a crossfade's a little bit easier and faster, let's try that one first. I'm going to add a pretty substantial 3-second fade here and see how it sounds. Nice, that's a lot more natural sounding. Now let's check our second transition back out of this section. It's usually easier to bring bigger music in suddenly, as long as there's a strong first beat to land on. Let's see. Yep, that works fine. Alright, now let's check out the whole new shrunken section of music. Nice. That would work perfectly if we needed to shrink the music and push it into the background a bit. Now, musical shrinks are very useful when you're trying to focus attention on something in your cut. Oftentimes, a shrink will follow a dramatically delivered line from one character to another. You can align a music shrink right after the line is delivered, sustaining the tension as we focus on the moment, often waiting to see what the second character's reaction will be. Have a look at this example from Forrest Gump. It's a good example of an emotionally delivered line, the reaction to which is placed in the spotlight during a music shrink.
Hello, Forrest.
Hello, Jenny.
Now, the third way that music can behave that's useful for accenting a cut is to simply shift, getting neither bigger nor smaller, only changing slightly. Listen to this piece of music and notice where the piano notes come in. With a shift, the music is not really shrinking and it's not really swelling. It's just changing tone a bit while maintaining a similar level of intensity. These shifts can be really useful for us editors, and they can be aligned with any number of changes happening on the screen, often subtler changes than you would want to align with a swell or a shrink. For example, let's look at this timeline, where we've been testing out some of these techniques by rescoring a section of the film The Martian. We're kind of jumping into the middle of a larger project here, but I think you're going to be able to pick up with where we are. Let's first listen to how the rescore is working when the cue is allowed to play out naturally under the footage with no custom music editing.
I got him.
Way to go, Iron Man.
Back, pull us in.
It's good to see you. You have terrible taste in music.
Houston, this is Hermes Actual. We got him. Lobby is secure.
This is actually sounding pretty good, just by chance. This music progression here, where the strings come in right before the cheering, is great.
Houston, this is Hermes Actual. We got him. Lobby is secure.
But you know what, I want to try something. Watney cracks a joke here, just to lighten the mood a little.
Have terrible taste in music.
It'd be nice if the music could respond to that somehow. Maybe we could bring those strings up a bit so that they answer back to his dialogue line. The only thing is whether or not that's going to rob us of the nice music change to accent the reactions of the operations team back in the base when they start cheering. Let's see if there's any music change coming up that could take the place of that. We actually do have another swell, an escalation of the music here, where the higher pitched strings get layered in. Let's adjust the cue to put the violins right after Watney's line and see where this second swell lands. We might get lucky and things could line up nicely.
It's good to see you. You have terrible taste in music.
Okay, that's the right spot, but let's smooth this out a little bit. We'll drop this section of the cue down to a lower track, then we'll trim out the top track with the A side of the music a little bit, and we're going to fade it out over one measure, while also gradually fading in the section of strings. This should smooth out the transition nicely. Let's see.
You have terrible taste in music.
Great, that works. But let's take advantage of our flexible edit here and roll the whole transition a bit later until after Watney finishes delivering his line. And I think that our second batch of violins is going to line up nicely with the crowd cheering. Let's have a look.
I got him.
Way to go, Iron Man.
Back, pull us in.
It's good to see you. You have terrible taste in music.
Houston, this is Hermes Actual. We got him. Lobby is secure.
Alright, I think that's all working pretty well, and the music is lining up nicely to the key moments in the footage. It didn't take much to dramatically improve the relationship between the drama on the screen and the music that supports it. So, a common thing I hear from editors is that the most difficult part of music editing is finding the right music in the first place. To some extent, this is true. Sifting through thousands of cues can definitely be time-consuming, and it kinda sucks. However, over the years, I've come to realize something else. A lot of the time, when an editor says that they can't find the right music, it's not that they haven't found good music. It's that they haven't been able to custom edit it to fully support their cut. The key takeaway here is that if you know how to work with music really well, you're going to be able to find that quote-unquote perfect cue way faster. And that's because the cue won't actually need to be perfect. You're going to make it perfect for your cut through editing. Hey there! For tons more free editing training, head over to our website at filmeditingpro.com/free training. Here you can download free editing guides along with high-quality video training courses created by our team of professional Hollywood editors. Our tutorials cover a wide range of editing topics, like cutting awesome movie trailers, editing action scenes, how to work with music and sound design, and a lot more. All of these free guides and videos are available at filmeditingpro.com/free training. I'll see you next time.